Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. Today with another budget deck profile that actually has topped regional seemingly at one point. Like not my deck obviously, but the archetype itself. And I felt like I always liked them when they first came out, and then they got new support, and then I feel like the deck actually got very playable at this point. So I really wanted to share my build with you guys. I've seen a lot of builds that focus more on like either going first or like floodgating deck all the time. This deck will not be that, especially because the floodgates and hand traps are a little bit pricey these days. So it's going to be more of a go second Metaphys, drag out the duel a little bit, outgrind your opponent, getting rid of their boards and stuff. They have clear strengths, clear weaknesses, and that's what I kind of like about the deck. But still, they have mechanics that I would assume are somewhat OP. But starting out with the playmaker of the deck, triple Metaphys Ragnarok, because the card is basically like a smaller Necrophase on summon. I really like the card that you actually can mill quite good, then you get your attack up. You also want to be able to beat over your opponent sometimes, so that can be quite hard. You always have to look if he maybe leaves a weak monster on the board. Works especially well against the Youlings if you get rid of some of the certain key problem cards that will prevent your opponent's monster from being destroyed. But even that doesn't matter at that point, because you just need to make damage to actually get another monster summoned out with the effect of Metaphys card. Then they trigger the effects of the other Metaphys cards, and that's how you start your plays. I run obviously triple Metaphys Nephthys, because that's the searcher of the deck. It is a little bit slow for a searcher, but if you have him and Tyrant Dragon banished, then you actually can, with Tyrant, like the searcher card added to your hand, and then a special set, like the card they just search out with Tyrant Dragon. So you want to be banishing both of them first turn to get the maximum profit out of this deck. Like then instantly go be able to special summon a Daedalus and basically wipe your opponent's board, because let's be honest, who is playing a deck that does not have a lot of special summon monsters on the board? That's why I would like to go second, because if you go first, then even if in the your opponent's standby phase you get the effects, you cannot utilize on it, because in his standby phase he won't have established a board at that point. So you would wait again till your standby phase till you actually can do stuff. So that's why I like to go second, and that will be in this build as well. You'll see a lot of cards that actually work well with that. Triple Daedalus, basically not so much because of the effect. It's quite neat that you can, when it's banished, banish another card from your deck. That can be quite neat now with like Decoy Dragon and also on. You have a lot of more cards that you could be banishing, but you mainly play the card for the board wipe effect because it's non-targeting removal. And yeah, you want to be able to draw into it as much as possible as well in your first turn. So if you start with like cards that would mill your Tyrant Dragon, like banish mill your Tyrant Dragon. Whenever I say mill, I basically mean into the banish zone. Then you can instantly your opponent's turn get that card off and actually destroy him quite well. So you have to start from scratch again. I play triple Tyrant Dragon. I've seen it a lot of 2 at the moment, but I feel like first of all, for us Metaphys, having a lot of Metaphys cards in your deck is actually very helpful. Plus, I think the effect of being able to randomly mill it with cards like Necrophase, for example, is always a gamble if you go for Necrophase or directly mill that card. I actually like the card's effect for it because you want to hit it as much as possible, because it enables your Daedalus plays and sometimes your Nephthys plays, I guess, since with the field spell in combination with the Nephthys, I can make some plays against trap heavy decks because they can't respond to your card's effects. So that is actually quite a neat thing. So I actually like him at 3 because of the random mills that you can get with this card. I play double Decoy Dragon, mainly for somewhat protection, also to go into Metaphys Horus, because Horus is quite strong since they made this little tiny guy a pendulum card, so you can actually steal some cards if I'm not mistaken. I will not have an extra deck set up yet. I'll just come up with suggestions for the extra deck, because basically you don't really need an extra deck with Metaphys. That was what makes it so budget, in my opinion, and that's what I really like about the deck. But I will talk a little bit about it. One card that you could either make an honest, totally cut out, because I feel like I'm running a 41 deck version, which worked out for me pretty well. I just like being able to have an engine that goes into rank 4s, for example, that special summons out your somewhat win condition with Ragnarok more consistently. Is quite Summon Amok isn't that good anymore because hand traps kind of screw him over, but especially I think Ghost Ash is a big problem. And that you have a lot of spell cards that you could go get into the graveyard with, and being able to go into rank 4s whenever you desire is, I think, quite neat. But if you rather want to be running honest to support your Ragnarok a little bit more, or just cut the card in total, then do that. Running a card that is at 2, I would run it at 3 if I could. That is Metaphys, because if you banish that card, mainly you will banish it with the gold sarcophagus, but I really like being able to get that 5 mil out. Plus, you always can peek at what your opponent is playing if you ever have to go first turn. If your opponent decides to go second, that gives you like a little idea what your opponent is playing. It's not like you can do too much with that information, but it's more information, and more information is always a plus as well. Also, milling 5 cards, and since you're running basically every Metaphys card nearly at 3, can give you quite some plays, but you have to be kind of lucky. That's always the problem with like mill kind of decks. Now I decided to, since I'm going second, run a little kaiju engine in the deck. I run basically not the best kaijus, but the cheapest kaijus, because it's still a budget deck profile, and if I can afford it, then you can too. So that's why I decided that. Obviously, run 1 kaiju slumber as well. Sadly, it's at 1. Otherwise, I would have run 2 or 3, because the card is actually really good. I guess that's why it's at 1. Starting out with the spell cards now. For reals, I run triple as a Metaphys. Obviously, no wonder, because you can get draws off, you can get rid of cards in your hand that you would rather have banished, and the effects that the card has are somewhat neat too, I assume, lowering your opponent's attack points. I think swifting the opponent's monster into defense position is, first of all, with links totally irrelevant, and second of all, actually not that helpful if you're playing like if you want to get your Ragnarok effect off. But I mean, it's in your opponent's turn, if I'm not mistaken, the effect that does that. So yeah, that is the opponent's turn, so it can prevent your opponent from like damaging you at one point, but it will basically trigger during their standby phase, and then they can still basically play a lot afterwards. So that is not really relevant. You only use it for consistency and banishing your monsters. I run the field spell at 3, Metaphys Factor, because I actually think it's very relevant. Gosh. Because your opponent cannot respond to your Metaphys effects. That's so important. I don't know how the ruling is with inherit summons. If you like summon a card off of a Metaphys monster's effect, if you then even can't solemn the card, but otherwise, besides the solemns to stop the summon of your monster, your opponent can't do shit about your effects, which I actually like, and that is basically why I run the card at 3, and you basically want to see it whenever you are going to make any play, so opponent cannot stop you. That is my reasoning for running a card at 3. Plus, having more Metaphys card in your deck for Aswell Metaphys, for example, is quite neat too. Running triple Gold Sark, because Gold Sark searches basically any card in this deck with the effects of other cards, and being able to banish the trap card, for example, that is a new searcher for the deck, is quite neat as well. So there should be no debate about running this card at 3. I really hope it's not following the OCG example of being limited to 1 because of Thunder Dragon shenanigans, because that would kind of screw the deck over a little bit, because you'd lose 2 valuable searches that have basically no conditions, so I actually would rather not see it at 1. Next card, one card that is at 1, Dark Hole. If you have Raigeki, put in Raigeki. I obviously wanted to keep it as budgety as possible. Plus, in the deck, essentially, Dark Hole is Raigeki, because if you go in second, instantly draw into it, you would have a monster on the board, and even if not, your monsters mainly banish themselves anyway, and so on. So you're not very relying on a big board that you'll build up that you would destroy with it. A card that is somewhat of a floodgate still works, because you can't search it anyway, so it doesn't really matter if you go in first turn or second turn. If you can get it out, it's basically good. Like, that's a card that doesn't matter if you second or first turn. It is good because you go in it for the long run, and even if you shut down your opponent with his graveyard after the first turn, that still is totally fine. I run to the trap lineup triple Metaphys Ascension, because it searches, it draws, it's just a very good card. You mainly want to use the banish effect, but if you have 2 in your starting hand or whatever, and you could even banish one with a Metaphys, then obviously set it and get off the actual trap card effect, but that's not the main reason. I run double Metaphys Dimension. If you really have to go first turn and you're playing against a deck that special summons or whatever, you could side it in as 3 and actually go for the card a little bit more, because I think if you get the effects of the card is very strong, but it's kind of bricky sometimes. It's a trap card, so it's kind of slow. Your opponent can get rid of it easily, and so on. So I like when it pops off, but it just doesn't pop off enough to actually run it at 3. Plus, it's somewhat searchable, so I guess run it at 2 is fine. And 1 Macrocosmos to be a little bit floodgatey. It's just, if you're playing a banished deck, then might as well run the both one-offs. So I actually really like this card in the deck too. And that's my deck profile so far. For the extra deck, you can, if you run link monsters, which you barely will get out, you could go for the Hyperstar, because your monsters are mainly light monsters. I don't really feel like it's necessary, because you will never have as big of a board that you want to get rid of 2 of your beatstick monsters for 1 link monster, so you can go into your extra deck. The extra monster zone will mainly belong to 1 monster, and that's Metaphys Horus or any rank 4 card if you decide to play the Summoner Monk, for example, because then you can go for Utopia if you really need to beat over stuff, for Tornado Dragon, for Baguska if you need to stall, and so on. There's a lot of things that you actually can do at that point. But that's it to the deck profile. For the side deck, I did not prepare anything yet, because most side deck options are actually pretty expensive. Depends always on if you have to start first, if you have to go second. You want to maybe run Effect Veiler, for example, if you want to look for a budget Infinite Impermanence, which is, it's not as good, but what can you say? If you don't have the money, then you don't have the money. Otherwise, there's like cards that you can put into, like Honest, for example, if you feel like you have problems beating over your opponent's monsters. There's a lot of stuff that you actually can do with this deck. But I might, if I ever go to a tournament and actually play them, then I'll obviously update this deck profile with a side deck that is according to the actual meta and stuff. But right now, I felt like I hope the FTK problem gets solved, so I didn't want to build a side deck against the FTK anyway. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave it a like if you did. Always open for card suggestions, card discussions in the comments, and I hope you have a good day.